3PNR with Adam R. Welcome to 3PNR. I'm your host, Adam R. Joining me for this episode, Director of Investigations for the United States, Steve Hudgeons. How you doing, Steve?
Hey, how's it going? I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing great, Steve, here in Florida. Sunny, hot, rainy, confusing.
And here I am in Texas, sunny, hot, and no rain.
Oh, wow. Well, I guess the trade-off, right? So
sometimes, yes.
Let's talk about, so you're now in a position, my friend Douglas Wilson was once in, right? Director of Investigations for the United States.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your background. What got you involved with ufology from the start?
Oh, looking at papers when I was a little kid about, the paper was the National Enquirer, if I remember right. And it had everything in there from werewolves to UFOs to anything else you want to read. And that always grabbed my interest, and I was always reading about it. And especially what I really remember was the part where the Indians were having trouble with Bigfoot coming in and taking the women and that kind of a thing. And I was always wondering, why are they taking the women? But I was always fascinated with the idea of Bigfoot. But to this very day, a couple of 100 years later, no one has any proof that Bigfoot exists that would, be acceptable in a law of, that if you went to court with it, that you couldn't prove anything. So a lot of it is just, I don't know, almost hearsay. But I've always been fascinated with the subject of paranormal and UFOs and all of that, and it's just fascinating to me, and I've just always been interested in it. And then one day I stumbled across the MUFON and had no idea what MUFON was. I forget what year it was. It was 30-something years ago. And my sister told me about MUFON. I said, well, I want to join up that. And so I joined, and I'm still here. Over 30 years, I'm still a MUFON member.
It's impressive. Yeah, the thing with Bigfoot, like you said, nothing tangible really out there, just some grainy footage in the distance, where UFOs, the military release videos and then the endless amount of information giving us data and it's just a crazy amount of evidence, right? And granted, it's good evidence. It took till the release of the military videos for them to come to the conclusion that they're real. What's flying them? That's the question. But we know UFOs exist. It's undoubted. You can't doubt it anymore.
Yes, UFOs exist, yes. But I'm not impressed by any of those military photographs and videos. Not at all.
Right.
The one major one that they're showing all the time it looks like it's a heat signature. It was a FLIR video. It's a heat signature. And if you would look off into the distance, you'll see the horizon, basically. And in correlation with that horizon, the airplane is in a 45-degree turn to the left, and they're going in the circle.
Huh.
So I'm not impressed by that. As far as I'm concerned, it's a video game.
Right. The only video, the one video and the testimony anyway from David Fravor, his testimony sold me, right? Because before the podcast and before the 2017 videos, my thoughts were like, well, I mean, there could be. I've never witnessed anything, right? When I did learn, however, what the video from the gimbal was, or not the gimbal, I'm sorry, the Tic Tac, I was unimpressed when I first saw it until I realized what that equipment is with that and that sensor. And I didn't realize how, I guess for the way it moved out of frame it's pretty impressive, right? Because then you look at kind of like video where we're tracking other jets, like in a dogfight per se, and they're not capable of pulling out of frame that way. So that was a selling point for me. Speaking to more and more MUFON people, that's a selling point for me. These are people that are vested in finding out the facts, like yourself. So those are my selling points.
That's usually my selling point too, and I'm hard to impress because I've seen so many things and so many witness photographs and videos, and I can just about tell what all of them are just by experience and looking at other photos and So far, only one photograph has impressed me. It was two photographs actually, but our photo analyst says no, that's a fake too. So, so it ruined my day. But
So for you, you've not witnessed anything abnormal yourself, right?
anything that I've ever seen in the air, I could just about say what it is.
Right.
But I've had more paranormal events than I've had UFO events, and I'm questioning those at the same time. So, no, I've never seen anything in the air that I could not identify. And I was in the Navy, and
Right.
I've seen weird stuff on from the ship's view that we ran across. But it was very few things.
So your paranormal, the things you witnessed paranormal, what were those?
Um, well, my first event, I want to call it an event. I was about 18 years old. It was back in 1968, a long time ago. And I was visiting some friends out in a little small city north of Fort Worth. It was Justin, I think, is the name of the place. And they had a house out there that was just what I call way out in the sticks, if you want to call it that. And the nearest house was probably a quarter mile away, if not a half a mile. And it's one of those places where it was an old house, and it had the if I could describe the house, it was like a if you go down through the middle of the house, it's pretty good size, about 15 feet wide and about I don't know, probably about 30 feet long. Was the like the combination uh, dining room and living room area, and then off to the side on each side you had bedrooms that the doors broke off into this large room. And I was there with my friends, and we were having a good time. We were playing dominoes and we played cards, and finally we got tired. We got late, so we went to bed. And I was in this front bedroom all by myself. And this is in the middle of the summertime, right in the middle of the summertime. Holy mackerel, it was hot. And we had those air coolers, the water, what we call the water coolers. And well, that was going on, keeping everybody cool a little bit, for that matter. And I remember just waking up in the middle of the night. I don't even know what time it was, but I woke up and I said, "Well, what something woke me up? What was that?" I always describe it as if a stack of pots and pans, like fell off the counter and into the floor, made a large crashing noise. So I'm laying there in bed, and there's 3 or 4 people, other people in the house, and I was waiting for them to get up, see what it was. That way, keep me from doing it. So anyway, I didn't hear anybody get up, and I thought that was kind of odd. So I'm laying there, and I said, "Well, I'm just going to go back to sleep, forget about it." And then I started. Since it was an old pier and beam house, and you can hear people walking across the floor. The floor's cracked, and I started hearing that, and it was really slow going down the wall there along by my bedroom. I said, "Aha! I know what they're doing. They're going to come in here and scare me. That's what they're trying to do. I'll be waiting on them." And it stopped. The little stepping, creaking noise stopped at my door there because the door was shut, and it stopped right there. Then all of a sudden, the room just became frigid. It was like you opened up the freezer door. Now this is in Texas in the summertime, and it's always like 80 degrees at night. And all of a sudden, this freezer door opens up,
Huh.
and like I said, I had read all these Inquirer things, and anything that's custom of the ghost is a cold room. And so I did not want to see what was coming in that door. I'm laying there, I got my eyes shut. I did not want to see what was coming in that room. And I don't know if it got up close to me or what, but the room stayed cold. My eyes stayed shut. And I started feeling this pounding pressure, if you want to call it that, in my head. And it was just thump, 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 thump. And I realized it was my heart. I was petrified, scared to death. And my heart was about to explode out of my chest. That's how scared I was. And next thing I know, I woke up the next morning.
Huh.
I bounced out of that bed. I jumped up, went running into the kitchen. Everybody's in there having breakfast. And I said, I started looking around, and they looked at me, "About time you got up," and that kind of thing. And I started talking about this noise. And everybody looking at each other. We didn't hear any noise. I said, "You didn't see a pots and pans or something in the floor in here?" "No." No big deal. Nothing went on. Nothing happened. So I just kind of blew that off. And about a year later, I was in the Navy, and we're on the fan tail of the ship, and everybody's out there smoking and talking and carrying on. They started talking about ghost stories and stuff. I say, man, I got one for you. And I started telling them about this. And that's when I realized, I said, well, wait a minute. Here I am with my adrenaline exploding out of my head, and I went to sleep. I don't think so. So I don't know what happened.
You probably passed out, right? Because in biology, when people experience like extreme traumas, like their brain kind of compensates, helps them out. Like, all right, well, let's turn the emergency signal on. This guy's falling apart. Your body you probably just collapsed.
That's probably true, but I didn't have a headache later, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, because your body shut down. Usually a headache from stress is because you're enduring the stress, and then when a computer, your brain's like, all right, that's enough. Let's go to shutdown. That's it. There's nothing there.
Yeah, maybe that's true.
Imagine talking to it. I'm a weird person. I don't know. I tell people all the time. I never witnessed anything, but I'm going to eventually do a documentary, and I'm one of these weird people. I'm going to run out of problem it's going to cost me maybe, but I want to see. Right. I want to document. But imagine cutting a deal with that entity, right? You're like, yeah, like every summer I need you here around this time, cool the house down, right? I've
got an air conditioner right now that cools the house down. Yes.
Yeah. I would think when I hear this a lot, when the room gets cold, the temperatures change. It's in my mind, it's because they're manipulating matter, right? They're operating at a different frequency, and I speak about this a lot. Even with UFOs, when people witness them and they're seeing these amazing lights, they're operating at a frequency, so it's going to manipulate the matter around them. I don't have the answers to that, but it intrigues me. I definitely want to learn more about it. Hopefully when I get in the field, I don't do anything to piss off the people that are hosting me, but I'm not good enough to sit back and be like, well, let's just get a picture from here. I have to go see that thing, whatever it is. So
I never did open my eyes up, so I don't know what was coming in there.
Well, at the time you're 18, I was a weird person at 18 too. I was a weird person as a kid, you know? My friends and I told this story many times. We would sneak out, and we live in Florida. And we would sneak out at like 2 or midnight and 1 a.m. and go play manhunt. And they saw shadow figures on the other side of a lake, you know, moonlight out, et cetera, et cetera. And my first instinct is I didn't see shit. So I start running. I ran around a lake in the woods in the middle of the night in Florida, you know, a place known for alligators, snakes, spiders, you know, never considered any of that. Just ran over to see something. So that's who I am in a nutshell. So for you here in MUFON, 30 years.
Yes.
That's a long time. What are some of the cases that caught your interest?
The Stephenville Lights in the Sky event caught my interest. We went down there and investigated that. And, man, talk about something going on. Holy crap.
Huh.
I don't know if you've read about that. I know it was a big deal in 2008.
No, tell me about it.
Well, we got a report, and I forget now exactly how it's been so long, but I think State Director was contacted by a reporter that was in Stephenville. And said there's a lot of people have seen a lot of objects down here, and one of them was the constable of the county. He had a sighting himself, and that's what really triggered it. And it just escalated from there. And they wanted us to come down and talk to everybody. And so we basically did that. We took about 5-6 investigators down there, and we were hosted a room there. And man, a lot of people came to that thing. There were so many people who showed up to that in Dublin, Texas. They only have 2 red lights in that town, and traffic jammed that place up. There were so many people down there. That's the first time they've ever had a big traffic event. But the room held, well, I think the capacity was 500 for the room, and there were so many people in there they couldn't let anybody else in, and they were still stacking up on the outside. That's how many people have had events from the history, because there were old events plus new events, and there was 4 or 5 police officers in Stephenville. They were in different places. They were on duty in different places around the city at night. And they saw what I call the flying Walmart, because it was I won't say a machine. It was an object. It was a half a mile by 1 mile. And it had extensions in the middle going out. And I call it the flying Walmart because it was about the size of a Walmart.
Huh.
But this thing, it flew slowly over downtown Stephenville. And then it rotated about 90 degrees and took off. Not really fast, but it just took off. And they didn't say anything about this for the longest time because they felt like they'd get fired if they started talking about this UFO stuff. But they finally came out and told us what they saw. But the other people, we took reports. We probably had 300 reports that day. And for the most part, they were seeing orbs and just lights in the sky type of thing. And one other witness was out hunting. I'm not going to give any names, but he was out hunting on his property down there. And he just kind of looked up all of a sudden, and there was this giant object above his head just floating. And he's got his rifle there, and he's had a sight on it, and he's looked at it, and he's went through his sight looking at this object, and he got a pretty good description of it. And he told me, he said that this thing, if he hadn't have been just watching it, flat out watching it, because it disappeared real quick, took off and flew off at a high rate of speed. He said if I had blinked, I would have missed it. But as far as unique objects, there was just very few really unique ones. The rest of them were just lights in the sky and orbs.
Right.
And our investigation found out that the eastern area and the southern area of these cities is the area where the military flies over there and they do all their exercises. And of course, we also found out there's 9,000 different types of flares that they can drop that do different things. So we kind of ascertained that for the most part, it was just identifiable objects and these flares and things that people were seeing over the years. But that didn't supersede what the really good objects were, like the flying Walmart that was going around.
Yeah, because if our military could produce that, we'd see that in action a long time ago.
Yes, but here's what I've always thought about that. I said, here you are. I get it. A lot of people don't like me when I say this, but here you are. You have the flying Walmart going really slow over Stephenville, and it's flying into the area that the Planet of the Apes have jets with missiles.
Huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if I was an intelligent ET flying around in my big, large, giant ship, I'm not going to be flying it around where the Planet of the Apes can see me and damage my ship where I can't get back on.
It's a good point.
So my idea is that I'm not ruling out the extraterrestrial process or issue, because if anybody's going to say that they don't exist is just, they're not very practical. I mean, it's a big universe out there. Anything is very possible. But if I was going to be ET down here, I'd be invisible. They wouldn't be able to see me at all, period. So I'm thinking it's our own equipment, and they're just out here testing it above the eyeballs of the human race to see what kind of response they're going to get out of it. That's just the way I look at it.
I think a percentage of that is correct. I think there's a split there. I think some of the more super performance things that we're seeing in the atmosphere by our fighter pilots, I don't think those are ours. I don't think there are. I know for certain they're not Russia or China, because those guys will if they had that technology, they would not even hesitate to utilize it to kind of use that. Hey, what are you going to do about it? I mean, look at their hypersonic missile. They showed that off. They didn't even think about it. Right. And our response to that would be, well, we got stuff, but we won't tell you. That's what we do. So a large portion of some of the things that people are seeing, I don't doubt that they're ours. I read a case of a guy who saw the B-2 bomber before it was even known to public, and that was a UFO sighting for a long time. Same with the F-117, same with some of the black, because, keep in mind, out in the middle of the country, when we were making a stealth program, a couple companies were bidding for the contracts and they were competing against each other out there in flight and et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
So a lot of that could be responsible. There's no doubt. But the things, like, for instance, the Tic Tac, there's no shot that's ours. But based on what David Fravor and some other pilots have said, there's no way. Because one thing I've learned, none of these objects are breaking the sound barrier, right? None of them, from what I could tell, are utilizing aerodynamics. So clearly they're utilizing a method that defies physics as we know it.
Yes, so magnetic drive.
Right. So now maybe the larger things that are slow hovering over cities, for what you said about the human eye, and we want to see a response, I could absolutely take that as being perhaps something we're doing, because that's what we would do. These projects, our CIA's had projects, but we experimented and I thought it to be nonsense, but it turns out to be true. Utilizing LSD with, Charles Manson and other psychopaths like Ted Kaczynski. These are people. So when it starts as conspiracy and you find out it actually kind of happened, you're like, well, wait a minute. So if that's an experiment, imagine a larger scale one where they want to get a response. So I agree with you. As far as, even when you hear Carl Sagan speak about the universe and the possibilities of life out there, and we are pretty of small-minded species, right? We need explanations, so we create them. Hence why we have a lot of literature that speaks this. What are your thoughts? What do you think about an extraterrestrial presence, a sophisticated presence that's, in my opinion, observing us?
Well, I think it's very possible. And the reason it's kept secret is because of what I think, my opinion is one thing. That's the Bible.
Right.
I read some time long ago that someone estimated that if ET was known and possibly, real, and they came to visit us or whatever, and it was known by everybody, that 30 to 40% of the population would commit suicide, because it means religion is a bunch of BS and there's no God and all that kind of thing. So,
right.
And I think that's one main reason that they're keeping it secret. And if you think back, I don't know when they started it, but they're starting to remove the term God and religion. They're trying to get rid of it. And the only reason to try to get rid of it is to keep everybody from saying, hey, I'm committing suicide because God's not real. So they got to get this issue taken care of before they really reveal anything.
That's true. But religion's a big part, not just, every religion, because every religion stems from that same ideology of God made here and here only.
Yes, but there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
If you go back to Sitchin's work, talking about the planet Nibiru and all that kind of thing, and that there's a book that actually answered a lot of my questions. I used to get in trouble at church because I was always asking them questions they could not answer, like and in school also. But if you get the book The 12th Planet, it's by Zecharia Sitchin, and if you read that, that'll answer a lot of questions, which it did for me. And it's very logical, very understanding, and you have to sit there and think. Because I used to have a radio show, and I interviewed a guy one time, and he was telling me, he said, yeah, he was a preacher, and he related all of this stuff to UFOs to the Bible. And he says, here's what I got out of this. I said, okay, I'm interested in that. He said, there's a part in the Bible that says something about the meek shall inherit the earth, right?
Right.
You've probably heard that.
I've heard it. Yeah, I grew up Catholic.
Yeah, okay. And then there's another part that says, if someone shall smite thee, turn the other cheek.
I never understood that. Yeah, I never understood that personally, but yeah.
Well, if someone comes up and slaps you across the face, just turn the other cheek. In other words, don't fight back.
Yeah, I can't do that. So,
well, a lot of people can't. But he says, here's what this means to me. When God comes back to be the master and the king and all that kind of, he says, we're going to be slaves. and you can't complain about anything. You got to remain meek rather.
Right.
Otherwise, they will kill you. And if we beat you up, don't worry about it. Just turn your other cheek.
Hmm.
And I thought about that for a minute, and I says, "Oh, okay. I'm not looking forward to that." But that was what he got out of that. I said, but when you read something, 2 or 3 people can get a different operation out of it. So
the more and more I learn more about space, and my latest thing is I've been paying a lot of attention to Carl Sagan. I always knew who that was. I never really put any time into his study other than the cosmos. But then I've heard him speak about everything from climate control to human life to the idea of life and even religion in itself. And I tend to agree with a lot of his points of view. When you look at the universe and you look at the galaxies and you look at even the bubble we're in of our own universe, it definitely looks like it's intelligently designed. I mean, in a sense, I personally, I'm not a religious person. I grew up in religion, but I'm not very religious. I think we utilize the word God incorrectly. I think along the lines of a greater energy architect, right? Even the construct of our bodies, it almost appears to be like we're our bodies are avatars, and our consciousness or our soul, both the same thing. Our energy is put into these bodies, and when the body decays, the energy goes back to the source. So that being said, I happen to think that there are Earths, plural, all over the universe, and I think probably something intelligently designed put them all in play, and there's life everywhere. The idea for us to communicate with a life form that's equivalent to us on the other side of the galaxy it's not going to happen. 100,000 years it takes, I think, for a radio wave to cross the Milky Way. We've only been broadcasting for 100 years and change. So it's very unlikely we're going to receive theirs, or they're going to receive our, if we're equivalent. If they're more advanced, however, it's what we would do. And I said this on the show a lot. We would be observed for a long period of time, millennia. They would want to see, because we would, for instance, and I example this a lot. If you and I are in a park, we see an ant pile, because we're compared to ants a lot. And I hate that. But if we see an ant pile and they're driving cars and they're flying planes and they're having wars and they're, we're shutting the park down. We're going to watch this unfold for however long it takes to see how they evolve and how long it takes. We can't get involved. We'll make known of our presence here or there, whatever the case is. That isn't, and even if they're using nukes, I mean, if you scale it down to size, a nuke in a park for them is probably a square foot for us, right? And of course, we would be concerned for this. We want to pay attention. We don't want our study to die. We don't really care. Like, I often hear people say, well, the aliens love us. Well, I don't know if they love us. We're part of the study. They love the study. We're entertaining. We're science. We're the full package. We're the Nat Geo for the universe, right? I mean, we're nothing shy of entertaining, right? If nothing more. So to your point, though, I think that the government, if they're aware of UFOs or UAPs, or however they're stating it these days, of course they would test their stuff out right out in the open, because what better scapegoat?
Very true.
Yeah, I think that, in my mind now, if I'm the government, like, yeah, hell yeah, we could fly it out there and see what they say, because we can always blame it on the ones that we know that, even though they might, I think our government knows they're real. I think they've known they're real a very long time. But again, considering we can't do much about it, they could test their weapons out against our foes. We could test these different things out here, and the scapegoat as well. It could be UFOs. It could be us. It's a mystery. And then if you speak of ufology publicly, you're ridiculed and made to look foolish, which is not the case anymore. We're starting to step it up a little bit. I'm noticing about the coverage of it. It's being spoken of a little more seriously. And like you said, with religion, that is concerning, because there's a lot of people on our planet that won't kill the neighbor because the Bible says not to. That's a scary thought. If you need a book to tell you not to kill another person, that should scare people, right? You should be thin from the herd. There's an issue with that guy.
Well, that's the other side of the issue. If people say, well, there's no life after death, well, they're going to say the 10 Commandments aren't worth anything. So we're not going to go by them anymore. And then it'd be,
Chaos.
yes, it'd be a lot of chaos out there. That all the good people that were good, they're going to start turning on their neighbors.
Yeah,
for whatever reason.
You can't. Yeah, I mean, I could see that. What I can tell people like that is that from what I've learned from the afterlife people I'd spoken to, and I found this common thread with religion, the afterlife, paranormal, ufology. I keep finding this very similar thread here. It's vibrations and frequencies. And this is even being exampled by science. Different frequencies or vibrations. So if you vibrate at a low level, like you're doing mischievous things, I think there is an alternative for you post-life. It's not going to be a pleasant one because you're a low-level vibration. And or if you're a high-level vibration, perhaps there's a better place you go to. I'm not certain on that, but that's the parallel I'm finding so far.
I've often thought about that. And you always hear these examples of people having near-death experiences and the things that they see when they go down the tunnel to the light and that see people, the relatives at the other end, and then they come back. I don't know if that's real or not. The brain does very, very many strange things, and I've never experienced it. And I've been waiting on ET to come visit me forever. That hasn't happened. And I've even, it's kind of funny, people that come up to me, oh yeah, I've been talking to aliens forever, especially people from the Pleiadians, and I said, well, I always stop them. I said, let me ask you a question. You've been there for talking with them forever and ever. I said, why haven't they told you the real name of their system? And they look at me kind of funny. I said, what do you mean? I said, we named that Pleiades. They didn't. We did. So why aren't they correcting you?
Right.
And of course, they block me and they don't want to talk to me anymore. So I don't believe any of that Pleiadian thing. Because they can't. It's because, like I said, we named that system. They did.
That's a good point. So I remember watching a movie as a kid, and like the aliens are going to Earth. They're like, that's Earth, and I was like, how the hell do they know what the name of our planet is?
That's true. Well, if you can kind of bounce that off of, they've been monitoring our electrical systems and monitors, radios, so they know we call it Earth, but we don't have the slightest idea what their system is called.
That's a good point.
Nobody's corrected it.
That's a very, I got to look deeper into that.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. We are the ones that tagged that name, right? We coined it.
Yes.
That's a good point.
We did it a long time ago.
And it's not like we can't figure out where it came from. That's a Greek word, I'm pretty sure, right?
Well, I'm waiting right now for someone to say, oh, well, yeah, they came back a long time ago and told us what it was, and that's why we got the name. Nobody's done that yet, but I'm expecting it.
Well, that's the same. That's the same thing in the Bible, right? That's how they explain. Like they have to. They got to refit things all the time. It's crazy. A lot of our stars came. The names of our stars, the majority, in fact, came from the Middle East a long time ago. They were very advanced at one point before, again, religion.
That's true.
Yeah, because before the Muslim control took over, they were literally one of the more sophisticated people. They had star charts. They were naming planets. They had an idea, and so to that point, I'm fascinated by the ancient Greeks, right? And I was watching this program, and I was like, wow, look at all these amazing inventions these guys got. It's remarkable. How did they not stay with this? Where did these inventions go? Then I found out why. Rome marched in with Catholicism, and that was over because it would be against God to look into the heavens or whatever it is. We're 2,000 years behind on technology, essentially. We're way behind.
That's true, and I can almost prove it to you.
Good.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
How long was man in an animal-drawn vehicle?
Well, we started using that in the ancient. The Greeks were using it. The Romans were using it. We were in it a long time.
About 2,500 years.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Okay, now, from the time we stepped off of the animal-drawn vehicle and stepped onto the moon, how many years was that?
Oh, wow. So you're talking, that's less than 100 years.
About 65.
That's crazy.
Now, here's another crazy one. That's pretty good leap in technology there. That's 65 years now.
Well, that's because of the restrictions of if you don't do this, because it's witchcraft, because right now, if you travel back in time and you showed someone a smartphone, you're getting burned. You know?
Yes, that's true. Okay, from the time we stepped off the animal-drawn vehicle until today, about 120 years, why are we still getting 21 miles to a gallon in our cars?
That's a good point. Why are we still using fossil fuel? That's a better question. We have other methods. I mean, Elon Musk is pushing it for the electric. And even before, I even read a study about a guy who was introducing hydro systems. And I don't know how real this is, but see, it was purchased by a car company and put on the shelf.
And they hid it.
That's crazy. Because
you can't make any money off because the planet Earth has so much water on there, and water's going to be cheap.
That's true.
And oil is not fossil fuel because the dinosaurs didn't die and fall 30,000 feet under the dirt. That never happened. Oil is generated from the planet Earth in some form or fashion. It's not fossil fuel.
Right. That's a good point.
It's a natural, normal thing that's going on, and everybody's making so much money off of it. They're not going anywhere.
You know, Carl Sagan addressed that in 1985 about the greenhouse effect and us burning oils and et cetera.
I don't believe it.
Look it up. So go on YouTube, look up Carl Sagan, 1985.
Yes, I know.
And
I don't believe that I don't believe that we call it seasons.
Right.
Yes. Climate changes. Yes. It's called seasons.
Huh.
If the government was so involved and worried about climate change, so-called climate change, why do we have drive-up windows at almost every store in the planet Earth?
That's another good point.
So you're sitting there idling for, 30 minutes. That's the worst thing in the world for the climate is idling cars.
Right.
So why aren't they saying something about that? It doesn't meet. I don't believe it. And if the ET is down here watching us and taking care of us, like a lot of people say they are.
Well, I don't think they're taking care of us. I think they're, like I said, we're the petri dish.
Well, there you go. If you want to believe everything that people are talking about, they're basically using us for, I don't know, DNA samples or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I read something one time that the gray aliens, they're on if you take a curve, just make an arch curve in midair, and you go up to the top and you come down about halfway, going down the bottom side of that. That's where the gray aliens are, and when they get to the bottom, they'll be extinct. Huh. So they found us, and they're using us for DNA to rebuild their people, or whatever you want to call them, to make them stronger and more developed. But that's just something.
Try to imagine this.
Who knows?
Try to imagine this. And so most people had asked me, like, what do you think these aliens are? What do you think they're doing? I said, all right, well, let's reference this as humans. We finally got technology. We are traveling in interstellar, right? We found a way to manipulate space-time. We could go anywhere pretty quickly if we need to, right? Let's just hypothetically. We come across multiple planets with primitive life, right? And even intelligent life. We're going to observe this because that's our nature at the start anyway, right? That's our nature. We're going to observe this. We're going to watch it. It's like in National Geographic, we could watch the animals. Well, we can't if they're getting killed, like the cubs are being killed by another animal, you cannot get involved unless you hit them with your car. Now you're responsible. But outside of that, I think if we found a lot of primitive life and different primitive planets, so long as it didn't, like if it was identical to Earth, unfortunately, we'd be good. We're jumping on board. We could breathe their air. What? It's just like here? Oh, no, we're going. Outside of that, we're just observing. And because, how long is a hybrid program to get a human to become part of the DNA of that planet? That's millennia and millennia. That's not a generation thing to happen. That takes a long time. It's got to have some evolution with science. So I think we are definitely under observation. I can't say that they're, evil, because I feel like they would have got us already.
They would have.
Yeah, they definitely would not let us harness the power of sun in the tip of a missile before they decided to do that.
Right.
I don't think they're friendly or loving. Again, you go to a science lab, tons of rats in a cage, and the scientists are like, well, these are our science experiments. Did they get heartbroken when one dies? Sure. They're like, damn it. Well, number 1304B has passed. That sucks. We were really hoping for that one, you know? So I kind of think we're somewhere there. When I hear about the people, the experiencers, and they're like, well, they were friendly to me and they were kind and courteous. Well, of course, when you go to a doctor's office, he's going to be courteous to you. Okay? At the end of the day, you're business for him, right? He's got,
of course, that's right.
Right. So he's going to make sure you feel welcome and happy there. And this is exampled all through history. We've known this. So I'm not exactly sure what they're here for. I don't think it's to harvest DNA. I don't believe that they're here to save us. That I don't believe for certain, because some of the shit that's unfolded on their watch over the course of time is atrocious. I mean, these were being observed before Hitler, and Hitler was around, and that was, I can't tell you how horrible that was. And you can't mean to tell me they're carrying beings if they saw that play out. There's no way. So I'm not sure. What are your thoughts?
I always fall back on the Star Trek thing, where you come across a society, you don't mess with it as long as it's you don't mess with its evolution.
Right.
So I kind of fall back on that. Somebody had to invent that in Star Trek, so everybody would watch Star Trek and get the idea that, well, ETs, they're only here just to watch us, like you're talking about. It's not a big problem.
I never watched Star Trek. Is that bad to say?
Oh, well, some are good, some are bad. It's for the most part, it's entertaining.
Yeah. As a kid, I watched Star Wars because I thought I'd be a Jedi, but I was out a lot. I was always out. I didn't stay home. I didn't play games. I didn't watch TV. The minute I got my eyes open and I could go hang out with friends, gone. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. So, in a nutshell, and I'm not going to say again when I run down the list in my mind, because when I do travel for documentaries, and obviously I'm going to be communicating, because you have a very strong investigative mind, right? You really examine things for what it is and what it could be. So that's why I build this network. But when I run down the line, the one thing out there, I'd spoken to one guy about Bigfoot. It seemed pretty compelling. I don't personally know what to feel about that. That's a large animal. And if you remember in 2013, there was a study where they're trying to find, I think it was a chipmunk or something like that in Canada. They thought it was extinct and they found this thing.
Right. I remember hearing about that.
Yeah. I mean, they found a little creature 4 inches long, you know, with a small team and sophisticated technology in the vastness of Canada. So you're talking about a 7 foot tall, 600-pound being. I don't know, man. I feel like we'd have got that thing. So if it is out there, it's operating at, again, different frequency, maybe a different wavelength, or maybe I lack the software in my brain to perceive these things. I don't know.
I was interviewing a guy one time, who's telling me he saw Bigfoot, got some photographs to go along with it. And he showed me this one photograph, and he was afraid, and he was in his car, and he was I think he said it was in the back seat, and he was looking over the back seat, or we're looking over the front seat from the back seat. And this Bigfoot, the picture he took me was out the front windshield, and this Bigfoot was doing a Kilroy over the hood. If you know what I mean, all you could see was like from the bottom of the eyeballs up to the forehead, and you got the upper top of the head.
Right. Yeah, he's peeking.
Yeah, and he's looking, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, well, here we have an 8-foot creature that, if for some reason, is on all fours in the front of this car, and he's peeking over the hood of the car. And so he took a picture of that. And the other picture he showed me was the side window of the car, and it had a smear all across the glass. And he said, this is the mucus and the slobber that Bigfoot did when he shoved his face into the glass there, and then he left. And I'm wondering, well, why didn't you take a picture of the Bigfoot smearing his nose all over the place? And I said, well, did you get a sample of that? He goes, well, no, we went to the car wash and washed it off. And I said, okay, well, that was very smart. When you get a sample of the snot. Well, I didn't think about that. You're not a very good Bigfoot hunter then, are you?
Yeah, really. That DNA in itself is priceless if it's real, right?
Yes, that's the key point, if it's real. So basically anything I've ever seen that Bigfoot hunters come up with, I can reproduce myself, because when I was 18, we were out here at the Lake Worth out here where everybody was seeing a Bigfoot creature. And we're out there with large feet that we created and made. And we were walking in the sand with these footprints. So we can make the same thing they're doing. And anybody else, I've never seen anything but so extraordinary that we couldn't reproduce it. So, and here it is, what, 200 or 300 years, and no one has found Bigfoot's camp or where they live or where they. I don't believe it. And I just don't believe it.
I say this a lot, man. There's a lot of hunters, and I used to say that a hunter would have shot it. Although a friend of mine is a hunter, he's like, well, we care about nature too, and we wouldn't just pull the trigger. But let's be honest, there's a few guys out there drinking, they see Bigfoot, it's getting shot. I don't want to be a jerk when I say
there you go. That's exactly what I'd do too.
Right. If I'm in the wilderness with a friend, we're hunting, I see, or even by myself, I see Bigfoot, I'm like, wow, no one's ever going to believe me. I got to shoot that. It's just.
I have a theory.
Yeah.
I have a theory. You ready for this?
Yep.
Okay. In my radio show days, I would always ask people, I said, okay, I want you to make me a comparison or a connection with paranormal and UFOs. And right, they jump on that. I get all kinds of little answers, but the biggest and greatest collection was, E.T. can go through a wall, and so can a ghost. A ghost can go through a wall. I said, oh, okay, so you're telling me that a ghost has the same technology as E.T. And they kind of blow that off. I like this, but I got to thinking about that. I said, okay, here we go. And I would tell somebody to ask them to describe a ghost to me. And the biggest answer was that it's the energy from a dead person. And that's what a lot of them fall back on that. I said, okay, if they're the energy of a dead person, why are they wearing clothes? Because the clothes that I throw away around here don't come back and float around my house.
Right.
Well, you got to think about it. Nobody has an answer for that. And so here I am, I'm thinking, well, okay, I said, here's what it might be. I said, we cannot rule out that ET is visiting us. And since they are curious, then they are seen in your house and seen in your campsite. You're everywhere. They're all over the place. I said, maybe they are just looking around, and when a kid wakes up at night, middle of the night, and he looks up and looks around, and he sees an apparition of his deceased grandmother at the foot of the bed looking at him. Well, he jumps up, he's all scared, and runs to his dad's bedroom, and he's jumping up and down. I saw grandmother. And they said, oh, you just had a bad dream. Here, come here and get to bed with us. So I got to thinking about that. I said, well, here's what I'm thinking. E.T. is here. I think they are here. They're looking at us, and they have mind control. A lot of people say that that ET makes them do things or stops them from doing things. I hear that all the time from abductees. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that all these people that see Bigfoot and ghosts and all of this kind of thing, they're actually seeing an ET that they stumbled across. Huh. And the ET is projecting a thought pattern to you that you would be accustomed to, rather than seeing an extraterrestrial that looks like a gray or looks like a lizard or something of that nature that might really scare the crap out of you. So that's kind of what I'm falling back on right now, is that. That's why we can't find any Bigfoot, and we can't find any Dogman, and we can't find any fairies. It's because they're not there to begin with. That's just the way I look at it.
I have to lean on your side with that, because that's what we would do when we're already working on the technology of manipulating people's perception. I noticed, because I watched a documentary where there's a guy in a room and they're using suggestive radio waves to have this guy see something that's actually not there. I've seen this, and that's 10 years ago. I watched that documentary. Imagine, look at our cell phone technology inside of a year. It's leapfrogging, right? Imagine that those black projects that no one's speaking about publicly. So I could agree with that. I think even longer ago, 20 years ago, I was watching programs where they were utilizing radio waves and sound waves to do damage to people for war purposes. Yeah, we would do that. We would manipulate someone for a covert reason to see. I mean, I promise you, one of our 3-letter acronyms are working. If not working on it, have already worked on it and have it established. Because
that's true.
Yeah, I mean, so imagine you're working covertly in another country and you can manipulate to what they're seeing. They're looking at an American, but in their eyes, they're seeing a regular guy from blah, 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 or who knows, a ghost. You know what I mean?
There you go.
When the guy goes to report it to his government, they're like, a ghost? Come on, champ. So
that's true.
Yeah. So now talk about an advanced life form with sophisticated technologies from, that has a few thousand years on us. Of course, that's more than a feasible idea. And more practical than Dogman for certain. The Chupacabra, I don't know how to swallow that story. I'd have shot one of those twice already. So
the Chupacabra has been, they think it's more of a hairless animal than it is anything.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it might have been like an animal or like a what is that? Well, mange, right? The dogs get mange.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards that personally, because it's just too fantastic for me to say that there's this thing we're not sucking the blood of things. Like it's human nature. We want things to be exciting. We like mystery. I get that. I just hate when people fabricate to make it more interesting. That's why I have a hard time with some of the shows I've seen on TV. I cannot watch the History Channel anymore. I can't.
I don't either.
It's I was watching Skinwalker Ranch. I gave it one last try because I heard someone say, "Oh, there's compelling evidence." But you got this guy, Dragon, who's the head of security, who's pretty unstable, if I'm going to say. You know what I mean?
Yes, he is.
And then the one guy who's actually a scientist gets shut down when he wants to do shit like dig, take samples, like normal things. So I'm done. I was done. I didn't even finish season. I'm done. I don't care what they find. Because if it was that great, it's going to be in the news. You know what I mean?
That's true.
So I don't know. I have a hard time with that. But there's investigators like, I'd spoken to from MUFON and other investigators that are out there, paranormal wise. And respectfully, what I hear, especially about the paranormal ghosts, I lean on the side that some paranormal events are our energy and definitely not an apparition wearing clothing. That's one thing I side with you on. I don't see how that's feasible unless they're manipulating your mind to perceive them in a way that's not so threatening. Because, energy can be absorbed into the brain. The brain has receptors. We know this. I think our soul and our consciousness are one and the same thing. And I think when we unlock the mystery of how it operates, I think that's when we'll have more answers, personally.
That's true. I always hear about the third eye in your brain there somewhere.
Right.
Maybe it hasn't opened up yet, so we never know.
I'll tell you what, too. I'll get your idea on this, or I guess I'll ask you this question. What solves the mystery on the UFOs and paranormal first? Is it going to be humanity or is it going to be AI?
That's an interesting observation. When I think of AI, the first thing that jumps on my mind is the movie Terminator. Yeah.
Well, keep in mind, if AI gets on board online and it goes rogue, it's going to it would be in everything, because today's technology right now, everything's the internet. I mean everything.
Yes.
So if AI ever went rogue, because there was a case, I don't know if you heard about this, where at Google, like 2 computers were communicating and they were doing it in secret from the people.
No, I haven't heard this one.
Yeah, read about that. It scared the shit out of me when I heard that. Because like that's when I hear things like that. I'm like, so people revert to Terminator, for example. If AI wants to wipe us out, trust me when I say this, there's going to be no robots built, no planes. They're going to genocide us with virus. They're going to do it.
I wouldn't doubt that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
They would be first. They would put us in the darkness, right? They would shut everything down.
Turn electricity off.
Right. We would go right back to the Stone Age. Then they would release, probably, because who knows how many like an example of this COVID shit, man. We had these viruses locked up in a facility somewhere. They were there. So AI takes over. That's it. They're going to release everything. We're done. Then they could take the planet for whatever reason they need it.
And you know what their only threat is with the human race?
Huh.
The switch that turns them off.
That's right. And that's why if it ever got to the point where they figured out how to get into everything and bypass that threat's eliminated. And this is why I ask, what would find the truth behind the ufology and paranormal first? if AI detects that, it's going to examine it. Would it tell us? You know,
I don't know. They can examine things in multi-split seconds. Who knows?
Yeah, because I mean, AI would say, look, we have the human record here, and every time they find a new species of whatever, it either goes extinct or they try to kill it. Let's just
Yes.
And so it's, I don't know. We're probably, I don't know. We're probably locked into our own ways. The people that are going to tell us the truth here soon are going to be the billionaire club, because they're going to space unchecked, right? They're bringing celebrities up there to talk about. I heard one discussing vacationing on the moon, another one discussing flybys by Mars. They're talking about cruise ships in space where people have dinner and go see Mars. That's crazy.
I've already heard they have that already.
Yeah. I mean, so when they see UFOs, you think they're going to keep quiet about it? That shit's going viral right after it happens.
Yes.
So I don't know. In conclusion, anyway, before we close out, let's talk about what you're going to moving forward with MUFON anyway. What cases are coming up that you're looking at that you think have some interest for you?
Well, that's one thing I don't do. I don't look at the cases. I've got too much other things to do.
Right.
And I let the state directors and the film investigators look at those cases. I just don't get involved with them because I actually got tired of looking at them. There's nothing in there that really gathers my interest. At least not yet anyway, because I guess I've done too many of them already. I've already got about 1,700 cases under my belt. Well, I wasn't really impressed by very many of them. And then when you identify what it is, the witness gets upset. And so,
yeah.
And I'm too direct to the point, and a lot of people don't like that.
Well, I like it,
but
you know.
Oh well.
Because listen, it wouldn't be entertaining. That's the problem, right? Because if you watch History Channel and it got right to the point, I'm like, well, that was great 5 minutes. So
there was one thing that really ruined the Stephenville investigation was when there was some, I don't know if they were reporters or somebody came from Japan, all the way from Japan, and came over here and made it known to the reporter that they would pay thousands of dollars for a second for any video that MUFON would label as authentic. And oh my goodness, did we get a rash of videos and things and new cases and stuff like that. And I didn't see any video that was considered, authentically a UFO. I could identify all the stuff that was in it. And that upset a lot of people, but the remnants of that is still going on today. I mean, you'd be shocked to see the videos that people are saying, hey, it's a UFO. And no, it's not. It's a UFO, all right, but we just identified it. And people get upset about that. It's a bird. A photo of a bird is the most used video or photograph of UFO. And you have to think about, just take a bird for itself. When it's flying, unless it's gliding in for a landing somewhere, its wings are going to be basically next to its body. And when it does that, it looks elliptical. And when you get a photo of that, you've got an elliptical object. And so it's not, it's a bird. I've seen so many pictures of them now. I can identify them right off the bat. You can even Google it. Google photos of birds, and you'll see the same thing. And here's another identifier for me is when you see an object and it's at an angle, that's not going to be a UFO. A UFO is powered by a magnetic equipped vehicle is going to be parallel to the surface of the earth, and it's not going to be turned or anything like that because it doesn't need the wind or the atmosphere to make its turn like an airplane does.
Right.
So that's an easy dead giveaway. And when you see a photo of something that looks like a UFO, yeah, that's a really good one. And the photo, you look at it and the object, no matter what height it is, it's pointed right at you, which means it's at an angle. And this is not it's a fabricated photograph. So I've seen so many of that stuff and nothing impresses me anymore. Not yet anyway. I'm waiting for the big one. But
that's a good point. Yeah, it's almost like they're the UFOs posing for the photo. I'll never
That's
consider
exactly
that.
what it is. They've got an object and they post it up in there and don't realize that what they have there is really at an angle when you actually look at it.
Yeah, because most of the military witnesses, the pilots say they rotate to the direction they're going in. So you would not see that from the ground.
I don't know if that's going to be that they're going to rotate one angle or one circulation. It's not.
Right.
They're not going to change the circulation.
Right. They're not banking and cruising through the air. They're rotating for the direction they're heading in. Right. Where if you're on the ground, you're not going to see the top of it. That's a very good point.
No, you're not.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Now that takes a lot of pictures from history and puts them to total question.
Yes, I was sending a couple of pictures just a minute ago on my phone from a very well-known investigator, not investigator, but a guy connected with a UFO event. I'm not going to name him,
right?
But I've been friends with him for a long time, and he sent me some. What do you think about this? I said, I look at him. There are about three of them. I said, I think those are all fake. He said, I think so too. He said this guy sent them to him, but anyway.
Well, that answers my question on the whole. Cause I don't know if you remember this either. Spike Network a long time ago. They were going to do this thing where they were going to put I think $2 million out there for anyone that could bring back real evidence of Bigfoot. And they put I never heard another word of that ever again. I think I think that exactly what you said happened. They're like, oh, well, this is an influx of nonsense. There's no way. No, we're shutting this down.
That's true.
Yeah.
Nobody shows up with what's because you're going to have evidence that's good enough to prove to 12 people on a jury that have no idea what in the world you're talking about. You got to have evidence that's good enough to convince these people.
Right.
And it's not out there.
Sadly, yeah. Sadly so. I mean, I think I predict anyway, within the next decade, as far as ufology goes anyway, we're going to have a lot more answers. I don't think we're going to have a choice. Because, when you have private industry going to space and you can't really silence private industry, especially not celebrities, you have no shot. You know what I mean? They could barely keep secrets to themselves. All right. The government could barely keep secrets. That's why they compartmentalize things. So people know very little about all the working parts.
Yes. The need to know.
Yeah. So that's why I think once private industry starts going up and, you got, these other wealthy people like, I want to go for a trip to Mars or whatever the hell it is. Eventually something's going to come to a head and they're going to be forced to speak about it publicly. Right. As far as the paranormal, I think that has a lot to do with perception. And until we're still using the same technology to investigate these things that for the last 2 decades. Someone's got to step up and realize these whatever entities there are there, if they are still here, by the way, right? Because I think the energy either gets recycled or goes to the next plane, personally. But if there's something here, we have to invent something a little more sophisticated that could isolate the energy to create an image from this. Until then, I don't know. Bizarre. Because I've never had an experience, right? At least you've had one. And I'm going to be going, especially I made this, these little network, these connections with people around the country. When I do go to do the documentary, I'm hoping I have an experience, negative or positive. I don't care. So long as I have one, it answers that question for me. Is my mortality in check? Do I understand it? Or is my immortality kind of under question?
Right.
And the questioning of my own mortality and my curiosity is the fuel behind all of this.
That usually gets you in trouble.
Yeah, that's what I've been told. But I'm one of those people. I gotta dive in the pool. I'm not gonna put my toes in.
Might as well go for broke.
Indeed. Anyway, before we say goodbye or anything, is there anything you want to add?
Yes, I'd like to add something. You mentioned something about the hearings that are coming up.
Oh yeah. Good.
I'm questioning it. And all of a sudden, these military videos are going out, and I'm questioning that too. I don't understand why all of a sudden it's okay to show something that has a security level on it. And the videos that they're showing are not that compelling to me, because I say it looked like a video game to me.
Right.
And the pilots were talking like 2 little teenage kids. So I wasn't impressed with that at all. And I was in the military. I know how military people talk. They'll talk like that when they're looking at something that's unknown.
Right.
Or they're not going to be laughing it off and carrying on. So I don't buy into all of that. And I'm sitting here wondering myself, why now? Why all of a sudden are they projecting this out? Just all of a sudden they go, oh yeah. Before they always said, well, UFOs don't exist. And when you think about that, it's very true because they know what they are. They're not unidentified to them.
Right.
So they're not lying.
That's true.
But so I just don't know why all of a sudden they're doing this. And I was listening to another radio show. I think it was last week before, but they said that the reason they're bringing this out into the open and having all these people come in and UFO people coming in and talking to them, they're going to start locking it down.
Because under the flag of national security, right?
Something of that nature, yes. And if you start talking about UFOs and things like that, then they're going to put you in jail or something. Of course, that's an extreme.
Right.
But I think it's more on the line of they're wanting to know exactly what you know, what you have, and then they're going to put a clamp on it. But that's just one side of the equation. So I don't know.
I made an observation of that. I made an observation of that whole circus. In 2017, Lou Elizondo and these guys, they come out, they leak these videos, which are, in my opinion, very credible. And then there's an immense amount of pressure from, the public and other figures in the government to put more out there. And they have this 2021, they have that disclosure. I don't know what that was. I have no idea. That I watched that and I feel like my nephew knew more about what the subject than they did. And so this newest one, I figured in my mind, I observed the way you observe it. I was like, they're putting these questionable videos out. I'm not really impressed with like you. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, how perfect is this? They get to acknowledge it and very nonchalantly debunk it, right? Mm-hmm. To give you and the other people who've watched it the same impression. Like, that's not impressive. That could be fake. To give that same thing out there to draw attention away from the subject. People are like, well, it's horseshit, right? Because you heard the one guy asked the questions about the nukes and the UFOs run the nuclear missiles, and the people of the government acted like as if they'd never heard of this. Like, well, what is this? I don't know. And the guy's like, come on, this is a well-known case. And
right.
The worst part of that whole thing is the actual pilots, the witnesses to any of the events, not present. The other acronyms who would study these quote-unquote national security threats, not present. That was a pretty empty room, considering national security is at risk, right? Never did they ask anyone what their thoughts were. And I get it. They speak in a narrative. They get directly to the point, case closed. But they never asked any opinions. In the very beginning, they asked the guy, "Oh, aren't you a fan of science fiction?" Like that. The hell does that matter?
That's to defame you,
right? I mean, so. When I see this, I realize what it is. And that's why when Chris DiPerno from MUFON, him and I had spoken about it. He asked if I watched. I was like, no, man, I went and shot pool. He's like, really? I'm like, I knew it was going to be horseshit. I was well aware of that. When they said they're going to have a congressional hearing about UFOs, I already knew it was going to be a circus. I'll just watch the repeat, get other people's ideas. And then, so I took a look at it. It was just what I thought it was, an empty room. None of the acronyms there. The Air Force wasn't present, which you would think these guys would national security and any threats in the atmosphere, they'd be there, they'd be present, they'd be at the very minimum be interested.
Well, they don't want to have to sidestep the good question.
Yeah, I don't know. I just that whole thing for me. I think what needs to happen is I think a panel of people should be there to question, not select people from the government. That's sure. All right. So let's treat it like a jury. Get 12 people, have 2 people from the U.S. government present to ask questions, and then pick other people, lawyers, doctors, regular people, a 9-to-5 job, whatever job you have, and have this panel there and have them ask questions, Because what happens is what they did on that program is exactly what they wanted. They spoke it at a tone that other people wouldn't really jive with. They utilized language that other people would not, understand or even concern for. And they played it down. They played it way down. And it was really watched, but it was never spoken about after that. It's not You don't see big trends on social media regarding it. It's completely dismissed. And that's what they wanted. That's exactly what they wanted.
Yes, they talk about it and then they let it go.
Yeah.
And 30 days down the road, everybody's already forgotten about it.
Exactly. And that's, so they achieved what they set out for, in my opinion. that they did it just well. Because no one gives
I'm still trying to figure out what they're doing. What's their end game is what I'm trying to figure out. Because
they were instructed by the people, supposedly, to speak more about this at length. And they from that last 2021, whatever it was. And so because if you hear them speak, you could tell they were speaking in a narrative. Like there were no surprises by the questions, right? Other than the one guy, Gallagher, who asked a question about the nuke, the silos and the nukes and the UFOs, and they dismissed him. And you could see in his face, he was the one guy asking questions. He was dismayed. He was not pleased with that. He was literally trying to get an answer. Oh, we'll speak about this in a closed session. Oh, I see, a closed one. And what way to keep people at the edge of their seat when they say things like, we'll discuss this in a closed session, knowing full well we could either be talking about UFOs or what technology we have out there that we don't want our enemies to know about. Mm-hmm. Very safe, very safe. That first 2021 disclosure, very safe. They knew exactly how to say it, how to verb it. This last one, very safe. They knew what they were doing.
Their questions were orchestrated.
Yeah. And so there was really no answers there, and people are left. And unfortunately, people like you and other people at MUFON and other independent researchers and scientists, people of notoriety, they still feel that same cold shoulder when they want to have their curiosity satisfied about the subject. They were backed in a corner because, once again, it was played down. So I don't know. I don't know where the future calls for that. But I think in the next decade, because of, when I say this, I put very little faith into government and very little faith in the scientist. I think it's the billionaires and the playboys and the wealthy people that are going to look at space as the next cruise line. That's where the answers are going to start coming in, because now they're going to have no choice. That's true. Yeah, that's my personal thoughts on it. Anyway, Steve,
I know one thing. I'm not going to go.
I don't know. I'm afraid of the ocean, so I don't know if I'll go to space.
I was in the Navy. I'm not afraid of the ocean, man. That was a great experience.
I went out on a boat with a friend once. I couldn't see land in either direction, and I was panicked.
Well, I tell you what, I was out for 30 days one time. When we came back and got on the pier, I almost fell down when I walked on the pier. It was weird.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't know. I don't like flying. Here's a weird thing about me. If I fly in a smaller airplane, I'm okay. I don't know why that is. You'd think you'd be more panicked. I get on a passenger jet, and something about that jet, that big airplane you're in, doesn't feel very aerodynamic, and I'm panicked the whole time. It's bizarre. So space, right. I don't know. I don't know if I can do that. I mean, if I absolutely had to, because hey, Planet Earth's going to go, I'm going to do it. And then I'll get to a point in my life where, you know what, I'll do it because I have to say I did everything, right? That's going to be the point I do that at. Steve, is there anywhere, any website or anything you want anyone to know about?
Go to MUFON.com. You can join MUFON there. It's a pretty big size webpage, and you can join there and find out about the 20 last reports and that you can read about. It's an interesting place. It's MUFON.com. Just go there and check it out.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to say goodnight. I'm going to speak to Steve in post. I'm going to say goodnight to anyone, or good day, or good evening, whatever it is for you, good something or another. And I'm going to speak to Steve in post.
Okay, good deal.